Okay, good morning once again. Day 2 of Unit 2, and we're still talking about um, leadership and the individual impact that we all have as leaders on an organisation. Yesterday we talked about the impact as us as a role model in terms of the culture of the organisation, and I wanted to dig a little bit deeper about that and what it is that actually drives our behaviour. Because what you'll notice is that people behave differently, and that's because of their experience and their way of life and who they are and how they've developed through their life. But one of the biggest impacts about our behaviour is our thinking, and it would be suggested that all our behaviour is driven by how we think. So if that's the case, then what that means is that if I can change my thinking about something, then my behaviour will change. So if I wanted to get any result in my life, this is usually brought around by behaviour or us doing some action or taking some action to produce the result. But that behaviour and that action is driven by how we think or our mindset. Let's have an example of that. If I think, for instance, that my colleague, someone I'm working with, is not very good at their job, or I have a very low opinion of them, then that is my thinking about them. And what that does then is it changes the way I actually behave around them. So I might, for instance, if I thought that about a colleague, then I might be a little bit dismissive. I might not invite them to meetings. I might not share information with them. I might not ask them to help me. And of course, what happens then is that I think this person is not very good at their job. I treat them like they're not very good at their job. And of course, what happens is I get a result that shows me that they're not. And this starts to cement my thinking about this person. Now, if I change my thinking and I thought about it differently by saying, well, maybe they just haven't been given a chance, and I'm going to try and help them. So that was my thinking about this person. And now I would behave differently around them. I'd probably involve them more. I'd ask them questions. I'd get them to help me. I'd invite them to meetings. And of course, because I'm behaving differently around them, their behavior might change and I might get a different result. I'm not sure if that's a good example, but I see this sometimes with leaders who have just been given a new team to lead, and if they have a poor opinion of that team, then it's a downward spiral. We need to change the way that we think about things. And in fact, this leads me on to another concept, which is it's a concept called reframing. So this is a concept of saying, okay, well, how do I think about things differently? Because the way that I'm thinking about things at the moment is not necessarily that constructive. For instance, imagine that you'd lost your job. Now, your initial emotional reaction to that would probably be very negative. Your thought process would be probably, why is it me? Why did he pick on me? The boss has never liked me. What's going on? How come this happens to me? And that's not a very good frame, because that's kind of depressing frame, and it doesn't put you in a very good space for future possibility. So we have to try to find a different way of thinking about things. And this is a concept, as I said, called reframing. So we have an event. So we have an event. We have a thought about that event, and that produces a feeling about that event. And then when we have that feeling and thinking, we start to talk about it and speak to other people about it. And sometimes that can be a very negative cycle, particularly if we think about a negative event or something that's happened to us that's not so great. If we think about it for too long in a negative way, we'll feel badly about it and we'll speak badly about it and we'll create what I would call a vicious cycle. So in a situation like that, we can't change the event. However, what we can change is how we think about it. And if we can change the way we think about it, then we're going to feel better about it and we're going to speak better about it, and it's going to have a much more positive impact. The whole basis of this theory, or it's more than the theory, I suppose, is that our thinking determines our experience of life. It's not so much what happens to us in our life that creates the experience, but how we think about what happens in our life that creates our experience. So everything all our thought processes are determining the quality, if you like, the quality of our life and the experience of our life. So this is sometimes a little bit difficult to get your head around. I'll give you another example. I had a good friend whose father worked in the Ford factory in Melbourne. And the father used to come home from work when my friend was just a child. He used to come home from work and he used to tell stories about how bad it was at work and how bad the bosses were at work, the leaders in that Ford factory. And every night he'd come home and be the same. He'd be very angry or upset or complaining all the time about work. So this had an effect on my friend, Richard. His name was Richard too, Richard. But this had an effect on Richard. So by the time Richard was 18, he didn't have a very good thought process about work. So when he started work, he was unhappy too. And of course, his bosses didn't treat him well, but he didn't treat them that well. And over a period of time, he realized that what he was creating for himself is because his thought process was so negative that he was creating this negativity at work. And I think you probably see people like this in the workplace who have a negative opinion about something and they're never happy. Do you all know, do you all have someone at work who's never happy? Doesn't matter what happens, they're never happy. Not good, is it? We all have people in the workplace who are never happy. Doesn't matter what the event is, their thinking makes it negative. Now, they have a choice, and we all have a choice about how we think about things. And it's a choice that we need to actively pursue. So when things happen, that we need to think about it and say, well, it might be a bad thing, but we have to find a way. It's not about denial, but I have to find a way of thinking about that so it doesn't bring us down. We have to find a way to look at that event in a way that doesn't depress us too much. I will share something with you. I might do that later when I'm not recording, but we we have to think about a way of being more positive about things, because we have a responsibility as leaders in the organization to create an organization that is forward thinking and optimistic and positive. And because that will affect how other people in our team work alongside us. And once again, it's our responsibility for the culture of the organization.